All right, so as I said, we are starting to talk about memory. Um, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Uh, this unit's hard, okay, and it's hard because it's a lot of information. It is a lot of terminology, and it's a lot of examples. I don't think that the information is particularly challenging, but it's just a lot of it, and a lot of it sounds similar to each other. And one of the other problems with this unit is there's not a good flow to it. Like the way we're going to teach memory is there are a bunch of different theories about memory, and I think I've gotten better. I've gotten okay at it the past couple of years. I've kind of changed it around, but there's not really a good flow because it's just a bunch of theories, and they fit together, but it's not always clear exactly where. It's a whole process, and so just be aware it is. I think that students probably think that this is one of the more challenging units because of the massive amount of information, but I think that it's also one of the most interesting. And what sucks is doing this online rather in person. This unit is probably in person one of the most fun because there are so many different like memory activities that we do that some of them will translate um, to some of them will translate online, but unfortunately, some of them will not. And particularly one that I think is maybe the best activity that we do all year um, just doesn't translate online. I'm just not sure how to do it online, so that kind of sucks. All right, so to start off, all right, I want you to on a sheet of paper, on a it could be a little note, a little sticky note, whatever. It could be on a Word document. I don't care. Okay, just it's you. It can be a sliver. It can be on a napkin. You're just writing something down on a sheet of paper. I want you to write down without cheating. This is just a little memory test. Okay, I want you to write down without cheating. Don't look it up. It's not a grade or anything. Okay, I'm not going to shame you if you don't know this. All right, I want you to write down the seven dwarves. And then once you've gotten as many as you can get, put them in a direct message to me. All right. Brian looks like he's the leader right now with six of the seven. Nope. Prayer and I got all of them. Okay, so we're kind of all over the board with most people being able to get two or three of them. Okay, but all right, so from what it appears, for the most part, all right, that was relatively hard for most people. Okay, not for everyone, but relatively hard. What were some of the factors that went into whether or not you could remember the seven dwarfs? Come on, guys. All right, how long ago you watched Snow White? Yep, I haven't seen it since probably 1992. So, okay, if you actually watched the movie, yep. My guess is the majority of you all have seen Snow White because it's one of the first Disney movies, right? But maybe not. How important it was to remember them, right? You probably, when watching it, you probably didn't think like, I better remember this because in 10 years, I'm going to be asked about this by my AP Psych teacher, right? The amount of times you watched it, yep. Okay, that the rehearsal of it. Any other factors? Any cultural factors? Whether you have a personal connection with the dwarves. Okay. 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 If you know the names in English, yes, that is Stephanie. That is a really good point. I've had two people so far, and this is the first year I've heard this, and I've done this activity for 9 years. I've had two people so far say they didn't know them because they watched. One of them had watched Snow White in Serbian, and one of them had watched Snow White in French, and the names didn't necessarily translate, which made it obviously harder to remember them. So, this is the kind of stuff we are going to be talking about in this unit, right? We are going to be talking about so, memory is the persistence of learning over time through the storage and retrieval of information. But we're going to be talking about how does information get in? How do we keep it in? How do we get it out into our consciousness, right? And then why do we remember the things that we do? Why are some things easy to remember? Why do we remember what we did this past weekend, all right, very clearly, but you have a really hard time remembering psych vocabulary? Okay. What are the factors that contribute to forming vivid memories or not? We're also going to talk about why a good amount of our memories are likely false and are either partially or entirely incorrect, right? Because our memory system is flawed. So, what we need to know with memory, and this is kind of what makes it confusing, is it is memory is. Oh, so change the color. Memory is multiple systems. Oh, I forgot when I record, it's really hard to write on it. Okay. Memory is multiple systems that are working independently of one another, but also working together. We have, when we think of memory, we just think of this like, oh, memory. Okay. All right. But memory itself is not a monolith, meaning it is there are multiple different parts, there are multiple different types of memory. For instance, do you all know what deja vu is? What's deja vu? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Feeling that you've experienced something before. Does anybody know where they think this comes from? Hey, yeah, kind of. Yeah. So when we process memories, memories are processed in layers. So our memories have multiple layers to them. And we have basically a conscious level of processing and then an unconscious level of processing. What they think deja vu is where one of these systems that work at the same time, but they work independently, they think that one of them is lagging a little bit. And so one of the systems forms the memory of the situation a split second before the other one does, which makes it feel like when you're forming that second memory, it makes it feel like you already have that memory because you kind of already do. Right? So that's what we mean by multiple different systems. Now, mhm. Yeah, that happens too. But that's they think the majority of deja vu is just like one memory system is just lagging a split second behind the other one. So today we're just going to introduce some important terminology. Okay, not going to be too. We'll probably go a few minutes over um, synchronous, but for asynchronous, you don't. You're going to watch a YouTube video and then do a little response thing. It's just like your opinion. All right. So, how do we measure memory retention? A couple of important terms. Recall. So, our memories that we are able to verbally declare. It's called declarative memory. Memories that we have, it's different. Like this is different than muscle memory, kind of. Muscle memory is a different system. Okay, but memories that we have, such as our phone number, I'll just use phone number, are stored in what is called the preconscious. Preconscious is stuff that we know that we can access, but we're not thinking about it right at that moment. It's not in our working memory. Okay. So if you ask me what my phone number is, like I'm not thinking about my phone number all the time. But if you ask me what my phone number, I can easily say it's 336 337 45 blah, blah, blah. Okay. Um, we can bring it from our preconscious into consciousness. This is what is called recall. Recall is when you simply have to pull a memory from your preconscious into conscious awareness with no cues, meaning no retrieval cues. You just have to, it's just got to spout it out. So if I were to give you a test in school, does anybody know what sort of test question would be a recall question? Okay, well, it is, but I don't. I think you're missing the point of recalling is not just remembering something. Well, yes, your name would be recall, but recall is when it's not necessarily questions from previous units. All right, it could be, but it's a specific type of question that would be a recall question. Depends on what it is. So recall is when you have no cues and you just have to pull the information out of your memory. Well, it could be a definition, but it's a yes. Shrita's short answer. Okay. Essay questions would be recall. Okay. All right. Essay questions would be recall, because like when we get to FRQs, that's recall. That's like FRQs are, I give you a scenario, I give you some terms, and then you just have to apply the term to the scenario without any hints. So you're just recalling the information. The other measure of retention is what is called recognition. Recognition is like a police lineup. Okay, this is where you have to identify items that were previously learned, but you're choosing them from a list. All right, so what type of question would this be? Multiple choice. Yep. Multiple choice questions are recognition because you are simply just recognizing the answer. The original Seven Dwarfs task that I gave you to do, was that recall or recognition? Recall. Yep. All right. The other way of measuring retention is what's called relearning. Relearning is exactly what it sounds like. And all of you all have noticed this before. If you learn something today and then go back to it tomorrow, you're going to have an easier time with it tomorrow than you did today. And then if you go back to it on Friday, it'll be easier on Friday than it was on Thursday, and then easier on Thursday than it was on Wednesday. When we learn something once, we learn it more quickly a second time. Okay? You learn stuff more quickly once you've learned it before. Any of you that play sports know this. All right? When you're in season or when you're out of season, you may take a couple months off from playing, all right? And then you get back in season and you might be rusty at first, but it comes back to you really, really quickly and much faster than it does people who haven't played the sport before. All right? Relearning is just learning something that when you learn it a second time, it's easier than the first time. Does anybody remember? We've talked about this before. What is the biological basis for memory? Why is it easier the second time to learn something than the first time? Where are memories stored? They are stored in our association areas. They're not stored in the hippocampus. The hippocampus processes memories, but they're not stored there. But even on a broader sense, why is it easier for us to relearn something? What do we already have? All right, Arnav, yep, that's correct. See if anybody else gets it. All right, we do already have schemas, yes, and schemas are one of the ways that we form and associate memories. But biologically, what do we already have? Oh my God, we talked about this a lot. Well, we do already have the frontal lobe, but when we learn something and we form memories, what how do we strengthen those memories? What happens biologically? Exactly. Yep. Yep. We already have the synaptic connections. Like the groundwork is already laid. And now you just got to kind of build it back up. Okay. All right. With relearning, all right, guy that you need name that you need to know, Herman Ebbinghaus. He studied this. What he did was he wanted to see if he could memorize nonsense syllables, three-letter syllables. And so what he did was he put together like a group of syllables that didn't mean anything. All right. And he studied them every day. And this is called the retention curve. And what he found was the more you practice information on day one, the less you have to practice it on day two. On day one, he studied for 20 minutes to try to memorize them. And then he found on day two, all right, he only had to study for 17 minutes. Um, and it came easier and easier to him. All right. This is called the retention curve. And this is why, guys, when I give you all like tips on studying, especially in this class, since all the tests are cumulative, when you start studying for a test, what should you start to study first? The old stuff or the new stuff? No, the old stuff. You should study the old stuff first because you already have those neural connections are stronger, so you're just kind of doing like a refresher course. Now, does anybody know why? And we're going to get deeper into all of this. Does anybody know why he used nonsense syllables rather than three-letter words that had meaning? Why did he choose to use nonsense syllables rather than words like why, the, who? Yeah. Okay. All right. Things when something has meaning to us, it's easier to remember. Okay. We remember things better when they have meaning. All right. Couple more little things. All right. So going back to the seven dwarves. Now I'm going to give you a list. I don't know that some of you have already gotten them all, but I want to see if you can pick out all of the seven dwarves if given a list of possible dwarf names. Surprised they haven't changed it to like the seven little people. All right, here you go. See if you can pick them out. All right, and once if you get them, just put in a private message to me. Okay, no. Yeah, Taylor, you're missing one. You got one of them incorrect. Okay, Maddie, yep, you're missing one. Okay. All right. So, Dean, I don't think that Humpy was one of them, although that could have changed the whole trajectory of that movie. Uh, you know, a whole different thing. All right, so there you go. Okay, sleepy, dopey, grumpy, sneezy, happy, doc, and bashful. Um, my guess is that was a lot easier for everybody. For everybody, what type of task was that? Recall or recognition? All right, recognition. Yep. So you can see recognition is a lot easier than recall. All right. So we're not going to worry. Don't worry about the forgetting frequency questionnaire. We don't have time for that. So I just got three terms that I got to go over with you all, and then I'm going to let you go. These are the two models of memory that we are going to look at. Information processing model is the three terms that I'm going to go over right now. And that kind of explains like the process of getting things into memory and getting them out. And then the three-stage model explains kind of the different steps of the different types of storage that memory goes into. Okay. And what I'm going to try to do is teach this as a combination of the two so you can see how they fit together. So, for information to become a memory, we have to do the first step is what is called encoding. Encoding is like typing information into a Google Doc. Okay, you're just putting the information in there. Okay, when we first learn something, right, we try to encode that information. Selective attention plays a big role in this, what we are paying attention to. Um, but there are also some things we encode, we just naturally encode, and some things we don't. So, can anybody tell me what you did on Sunday? Nobody knows what they did on Sunday? All right, cheer practice, watched the Panthers lose, made brownies, watched Netflix. Okay, played bananagrams, dance practice. Okay, had a book. All right. So all of those things, right? You just naturally remembered that because if you didn't, then you just be floating if you didn't have any like context to your life. There are some things that we encode automatically. Okay, things like life events, and we're going to get deeper into this. Life events, length of time, space, frequency, all of these things we just kind of naturally, our brain just naturally remembers. But then you wonder, like, well, why do I remember this meaningless shit? But why can't I remember, anything that I learn in school? Well, because stuff that you learn in school is encoded differently, and stuff that you learn in school takes effort. Okay, so some stuff we encode automatically, some stuff it takes effort to get into our memory system. And as I said, we'll get more into this. What defines if something takes effort to encode? I don't know. It's just, do you have to put effort into remembering it? You don't have to put effort into remembering like your life events. Okay. All right. Now, once it is encoded, the retention of encoded material is what's called storage. Once it's encoded, once it's saved, it goes into basically a holding cell that is called storage. For it to get in there, unless it's something that was automatically processed, it needs to be rehearsed. That's the problem with a lot of the ways in which a lot of you all study. You think you're studying, but you're not actually rehearsing it, so it never gets into storage. Storage, and we'll get deeper into these. There are three different types of storage that memories go through. There is what is called sensory memory. There is short-term memory, or the new term for it is working memory. What do I mean rehearsed? Well, what does rehearsed mean? Yeah, like repeated. Yeah. To form memories, we have to repeat information. We have to repeat information. Okay. And then there is long-term memory. One of the things I have noticed, and this brings up a good point, and I see this in a lot of units, but this is one where you really see it, is you all get bogged down in thinking about things like, what does the word rehearsed mean? It's a psychology term. Like it means the same thing that it has always meant. Just because I'm teaching it in the context of memory doesn't change the meaning of it. Okay. All right. And then, so, trying to finish quick. All right. Then once it's in storage, it doesn't do us any good if it's in storage, but we can't get it out. All right. If you have a storage unit, but you don't have a key for it, then that storage unit is pretty worthless to you. All right. Getting information out of storage from pre-conscious to consciousness is called retrieval. You're retrieving it from storage. Okay. Um, a lot of times, with certain, and this is the retrieval cues. So, like recall and recognition are both types of retrieval. And a lot of times, to remember something, we use certain what are called retrieval cues, which are things that, and maybe environmental things that make us more likely to remember something. Um, there is it's called a mnemonic. Yeah. Yep. If you make something rhythmic, it helps you remember it. But so, for instance, there's a term that we've talked about quite a few times in here already, specifically in Unit 3 and 4. What is a term that means that is like when something in your environment makes you more likely to think of something or to remember something or whatnot? I'm actually doing it to you right now. Okay. Anybody know what that term is? It starts with a P. When something in your environment makes you more likely to think something, remember something. Not a question. Question doesn't start with P. Oh, pressure. No. Okay, it's a term. All right, so guys, some of you are just like throwing out P words. Like provoke is. Have you all heard the term provoke in here? Okay. All right. So Eric, you're on the right track. Doing this creates a perceptual set. Okay. By doing this thing, it creates a perceptual set. And I promise you guys, I'm not, this is, we've used this, I've used this term. No, nobody's got me yet. No, not processing. Somebody knows it. Not positive. Something in the environment, maybe asking a question or something that makes it more likely for you to perceive something a certain way or more likely to remember something. I'm trying to do it to you right now, but it's not working very well. K, yes, K got it. Priming. All right, priming is a retrieval cue, as are schemas. Schemas are retrieval cues. All right, schemas, because schemas link different things. One of the theories about memory is what's called semantic network theory, which helps explain why when you think of one thing, it makes you more likely to think of another thing. All of our memories are linked. But we can have problems with retrieval. Right? Who all has had the thing where you know that you know something, but you just can't think of it right now? It's in there, and you're like, shit, I know what this is. Okay, anybody know what that's called? And actually, the term that you all know for it is the official psychological term for it. Come on, guys. The quicker somebody answers, the quicker I get you out of here. When you know that you know something and you just can't get it out right then. It's on the, yes, tip of your tongue. Okay, it's actually called tip of the tongue phenomenon. It's a true psychological concept, and that is what is known as a retrieval failure. Okay, all right, are there any questions about that? Why are some songs catchy? I don't know. We just have a preference for certain melodies, but I don't know. Oh, I thought it had to do. Well, it helps us when if you make a song out of something, it makes it easier to retrieve it, because making something rhythmic helps you remember it by, like, 15 nifty United States and the 13 original, like that makes you more likely to be able to retrieve it. It's just the type of retrieval cue. It also helps you encode it. We remember songs. All right. Okay, so sorry for going so far over. All right, for asynchronous. Okay, all I want you to do, so this is about 13 minutes long. It's a video about people who have what's called superior autobiographical memory, which is where they literally remember every single moment of their life, including like what they had for lunch on like August 2nd, 1995. Okay. And then